I was reminded of this trope recently by Allen Ginsberg, and summed up, it was basically about how a poet should find people they have affinity with. And it was just kind of interesting because while I think about relationships a lot, I don't really think of them in terms of affinity. And so it was just kind of an interesting kind of road to embarked upon, and just kind of how that kind of plays a part in both kind of relationships we see in real life and also in the stories we may enjoy. And so we can almost consider those we have affinity with to be our tribe. It's a good thing to be around. We have this common goal, trait, or interest. And then there's this thing where we can often be surrounded by people who doubt what we're capable of or doubt whether we should be pursuing our dreams or goals. But when we have our tribe, we have people who will back us up, who will encourage us to go after what we're pursuing. Maybe we are chasing the same things, or maybe we actually just have similar interests, or we understand what the other is going through. And so there's that camaraderie that builds. Now, the main issue with tribes is often the us versus them mentality that comes in. But there can also be another issue that doesn't really get as much kind of thought to it, or at least we don't think about it as much, because then the us versus them can be very volatile and seen, and so on and so forth. But now on Turchin's Gerd, being around people who are just constantly rah-rahing in basically a perpetual state of cheering you on can actually be a detriment to us. And for example, we can think of the CEO of a company, and now they've gotten to where they are very successful, but they've now surrounded themselves with yes men. And so whatever they say, whatever idea they propose, all those yes men are going to be like, that's a brilliant idea. You are a genius. I love it. It will work out great. No one's going to interrupt them or basically say, hey, maybe you need to think about this for a while. Instead, they're all basically clapping their hands saying, brilliant idea, sir. Now, the problem with that is that the CEO may not actually see how things actually are. And then sometimes the yes men will always inflate or basically not bring up anything that could be a detriment to them saying yes. They don't want that conflict of being the one to say, oh, yeah, you might want to rethink this. So there are these blind spots that come in that are like, suddenly the yes men have been saying everything's going great, but then suddenly the company's bankrupt. And so the thing is that oftentimes those yes men are now gone. So there's kind of this thing in that we may often seek affinity with people, and it's like we often think those are the people who will always agree with us. But the people who always agree with us may not actually have our best interests in mind, and they may not always be willing to stick with us for the toughest of times. So you shouldn't just treat, oh, we're like each other, so we must have this affinity, we must be a tribe and we'll be close knit together through all the ups and downs. That's kind of a dangerous mindset to have in a sense. Because then sometimes when you all have the same perspective, it can end up being the blind leading the blind when you have a situation none of you are seeing correctly. So the thing is that sometimes we actually need someone to challenge us, to make us think about why we believe what we believe and how we defend what we believe. And also to offer another perspective. And maybe none of us actually see what things as they are, but by combining the two different perspectives rather than all the same perspective, we actually see, wait a minute, there's a third option that we can take. And the thing is that, as the Bible says, iron sharpens iron. It doesn't say, oh, put a sword in a blanket and it will be sharpened instantly. Comfort can be nice, and sometimes it is needed. Sometimes we do need to basically give us a bit of a break from getting the nits and deans of life. But we also need something that almost has our same consistency, but maybe a different texture to basically help us work off the edges or the little stripes and abrasions that have kind of dulled our edges. So then sometimes we need someone who has kind of our same, maybe almost cut from the same cloth, I guess, or made from the same metal, basically, iron and iron. But we need someone like that who can, but maybe a bit different than us, to actually grow and become better. And now again, in stories, you can actually have it both ways. You can have people who have a very strong affinity for each other, and you can also have people who challenge each other in different ways. For example, I am actually thinking about the Star Trek series, namely the original series, where you basically have the crew and they're all in it together for the most part. There isn't really conflict that comes from within the crew. There may be slight disagreements, but they're actually generally mostly on the same page. It's mostly the threats are coming from outside the ship and whatever phenomenon or planet they're investigating that week. But then you have a show like Deep Space Nine, where yes, they have the common goal and a shared interest in the sense of keeping the station, but they may not always go about it the same way, or they may actually be infighting a bit or doing things differently that the others may not agree with, because there are a bit of different factions trying to coexist and commingle. They have different priorities and so on and so forth. So it's interesting to see that in play, because looking at the characters in season one, you definitely see a difference by the time the show ends, for at least most of them, in how they've developed over the series. So it's something to kind of keep in mind, in that basically bringing in a bit of friction and drama can not only create interesting stories, but it can also help with the dynamic characters, because they actually improve each other in a sense in that they help each other to grow by basically sharpening each other. Anyway, these are my thoughts on this, and maybe you have a different perspective that I haven't thought of, so why not share that in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it with others so that they can enjoy it as well. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to our channel so that we continue creating these videos. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lionsmane Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons learned from them. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.